All right, so what we want to talk about right now is the difference between concept-based jiu-jitsu and technique-based jiu-jitsu. What I think is that most jiu-jitsu is taught technique-based. There's a new kind of push to be more concept-based in the teaching. I think a lot of people claim that they do that, but really if you kind of push them to the edge, it seems to me that they're really more still technique-based. Everything surrounds what technique should I use for this particular task. And you can kind of know if you're in a technique-based learning environment, or if that's how you've kind of learned, if you're looking for what technique would work best in this situation. If that's what you're asking yourself, or if you say, I wonder what new techniques I need to learn to deal with this situation, or I need to understand those techniques to understand how to deal with them, then you should find yourself in that technique-based training environment. Another thing is, as an instructor, when I first learned, that's kind of how jiu-jitsu was taught, was okay, we're gonna go over these techniques, and this is a technique you can use from here, and if you find yourself here, you can do this, and if the guy does that, then you can do this. And it becomes frustrating as a practitioner, because what happens is you're looking really quickly in your head when you're rolling for that technique that you remembered or used, and then people have to drill. Now, people can be successful if they drill this over and over and over and put hours and hours and hours in this, so that what they're doing is really cutting that timeline down between when they can choose their techniques in their little mental flow chart. Now, let's talk about concept-based jiu-jitsu. You have to have an understanding of a general technique base, right? You have to understand how arm lock works, you have to understand how kimura works, chokes, things of that nature. So there is a technique base to it, but once you have that, you now understand concepts. Things like controlling the inside, strong and weak, diagonal, creating angles, creating holes, taking advantage of the back door, things like this that you're actually looking for in a roll. So what you're doing is you're examining the vulnerabilities of your opponent while trying to maximize your strengths and hide your vulnerabilities. In order to do that, you have to have a pretty good understanding of body mechanic. You have to understand how the position works, and if you understand that, then you can use that type of mentality going forward. But if all you're doing is focus on what's the newest way to grab a lapel to end up in an arm lock, or what's the newest way to create a sweep by grabbing here and putting your hand here, then it's very 1, 2, 3, 4, which is very technique based, that if you take one of those steps out, you're in trouble. But if it's concept based, it's really almost philosophical. Try to get to here. Once you're here, you can now lift. Or don't let him get to here. Once he's here, he can lift. That's more of a concept base. But here's the thing. I hear it every time somebody comes and does a private. They can train for 1 year to all the way up to like 10 years. The words that come out of their mouth is, once they're exposed to concept-based jiu-jitsu, is this. It's almost the same every time. I have been doing jiu-jitsu X amount of years, 1, 7, 10, and I learned more in this first 45 minutes than I ever learned in 7 years. The reason being is because they think they have, but they just now learned what all those techniques they learned over those years now mean, why they did them, what was the purpose. It all kind of fits together, starts to anyway. And that's the difference between concept-based jiu-jitsu and techniques-based jiu-jitsu. Thanks.